If you're a highly intelligent man, your brain may be working against you. You might be able to solve and understand very complex problems, but you still might feel stuck, anxious, or disconnected. And the frustrating part of this is the very thing that makes you so capable in the workplace or with problem solving could be the thing that's undermining you, i.e., your intelligence. And in this video, I'll show you why intelligence can create mental health challenges for really smart men. So if you're a smart guy, listen up, and how you can get creative and use that intelligence to serve your mental health. So intelligence is kind of a double-edged sword. Most intelligent men are really good at analyzing, solving, optimizing. But when it comes to emotions, it's not quite clear cut. It's not quite concrete in the way that they can solve emotional problems in the way that they can solve mathematical or logical problems. So in a way, you're kind of trying to use a screwdriver to hammer a nail. So we're going to look at 5 key problems that smart men struggle with. Number 1, highly intelligent people tend to overthink and ruminate. So what does this look like in day-to-day life? Well, you might overthink conversations that you had. You might go over and over and over mistakes that you've made. Or you're imagining future scenarios repeatedly on a loop in your brain, and you can't turn it off, you can't shut it off. It's intrusive. Intrusive thoughts are those things that you don't really want to think about. They're unwanted, but you can't stop from thinking about them. And so if you're smart, you're actually really good at pattern recognition, which means you might be looking for patterns where there aren't any, or you're over-interpreting subtle signs, thinking that they're part of a pattern, and you're just looking for more possible threats. The more you can think about, the more pattern recognition that you can do, the more possible threats there are for your mind to entertain. And if you have higher verbal intelligence, that applies not just to the external ability to verbalize, but also to verbalize internally, your internal dialogue. So what's the mental health impact of all that? Greater anxiety, indecisiveness or analysis paralysis, and then sleep. It's hard to go to sleep when you're just ruminating and thinking all the time. Okay, problem number 2, intellectualizing emotions. You can kind of intellectually understand what you're feeling, but you can't actually feel it. And there's a great quote by Les Greenberg, and he said, "You can't leave a place until you've visited it." That means I can't leave my grief until I've visited my grief and felt my grief and processed my grief. I can't intellectually work my way through grief. I have to actually feel it. And so smart men might struggle with over-explaining, over-theorizing, narrativizing. They're trying to figure out logically, mathematically, emotional problems when really what you need to do is feel the emotion and process the emotion and then express the emotion. But that's difficult for smart men on 2 levels. Again, the intelligence piece that we've been talking about, but also the masculine norms that tell men to shut their emotions down because it's not manly. So what I suggest for men to do is get in safe, trusting relationships where they can really allow themselves to feel and to process and express that emotion. Freud was kind of crazy, but he was right about a couple things, which is I feel better when I have catharsis, which is the expressing of the emotion. And then also understand how your intelligence can serve to help you minimize, diminish, avoid emotional problems. Because I'm uncomfortable with the emotion, I have more intellectual skills and strategies to distance myself from the emotion and avoid it. Well, that's not good. So what I tell men in that situation is get out of your head and get into your body. Just let your body experience the emotion. Okay, problem number 3 that I want to tell you about, isolation and disconnection. This one's actually kind of interesting. I've explored this topic in other videos, but men by and large are suffering from a loneliness crisis, a social isolation epidemic. And this is even more true for smart men. So smart men might find it difficult to connect with other men who are at their same intellectual level. So you might go and interact with a lot of people, but you don't find it very stimulating or exciting or enjoyable because the conversation's a little more mundane. It's not quite intellectually stimulating for you. Yeah, I know all about this one. I'm kidding, I'm not that smart. So it's hard to find other men who are at a similar thinking level, and that results in conversations feeling kind of shallow and unfulfilling. So smart men will have a preference for being independent. They enjoy the company of their own mind. And that makes sense to some degree, but all the research shows, even if you're smart, social isolation is actually really bad for your physical health and mental health. And we can see that over a lot of studies that have looked at longitudinal data and all the predictors of longevity. One of the biggest predictors of longevity is social connection, smart or not smart. So, again, what you find among smart men is they tend to have fewer friendships that have an emotional openness to them. They tend to struggle with vulnerability and they feel a deep loneliness. Okay, problem number 4, perfectionism and high internal standards. So smart men will just be mystified. Why can't they understand this thing? Again, emotions aren't concrete and they're not external. Emotions are fuzzy, ambiguous, vague, and internal. And smart men sometimes really struggle understanding their internal world. And then throw in a good dose of restrictive emotionality common among men, tied with rigid traditional masculinity. And so what you find is intelligence raises your expectations, but not your emotional capacity, if that makes sense. So you're in kind of a double bind. Okay, problem number 5, existential overload. So if you're a smart guy, you're more inclined to think about the meaning of life, purpose, societal problems. You might be more of a systems thinker. And once you feel like you have that greater awareness of where the problems are, but you're faced with some of the existential limitations of your own humanity and your ability to produce change, that can kind of be soul crushing. And so smart men tend to suffer from existential dread, existential anxiety, loss of motivation, and cynicism. Cynicism is a really bad place to be. And maybe even if you're justified in the cynicism, it's not good for your mental health. But I'm also not a fan of cynicism intellectually either, or philosophically. I think there's good reasons to be hopeful and to engage and work towards change, but I digress. So I want you to stop trying to solve intellectually your emotional difficulties. Instead of saying, why do I feel this way? What I want you to ask is, what am I feeling right now? And how do I engage with it? How do I experience it, feel it, process it, and express it? And I want you to develop emotional awareness. And that means you got to name it to tame it. So start naming your emotions. If you go on Google right now, you'll find a ton of websites that have feelings wheel. Grab a feelings wheel, put it up on your wall, and do a little emotional check-in with yourself throughout the day. What am I feeling? You can kind of look at the family groupings of emotions like anger, sadness, fear, shame, and then you can go into more granularity from there. And I want you to move beyond analysis paralysis. I want you to shift out of analysis and into action. So AA's got this great quote, you got to get busy to get better. So cognitive behavioral therapy would tell you to engage in the practice of behavioral activation, meaning you have to go do things you enjoy. I'm kind of reverse engineering the problem. Go do enjoyable things and I will feel happy. Versus if I'm happy and motivated, then I go do enjoyable things. Just reverse it. So call a friend, go for a walk, do something that engages you physically. Right now, I'm in love with pickleball, so go play some pickleball. And you have to build positive male connections. And men typically bond through shared activities and shoulder-to-shoulder activities. And that's okay. That's a good, safe starting point. You can go into deeper and deeper layers of connection. So go engage with other men at the gym, get into your hobbies or projects together, and then go deeper. And then I would say train yourself in some emotional intelligence. Try sitting with emotion. Try being present with your emotion. Try connecting and engaging with your emotion. Process and work through it instead of just intellectually trying to problem solve and figure it out. Sometimes it's enough to just experience the emotion and not to have to solve it. You can gauge your intelligence to help you work through the emotional issues, but you got to be smart enough to know this isn't a logical, mathematical problem. This is an emotional problem, so I have to pick up different tools to help myself with this. Hey, if this resonated with you, please like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. When you engage with my videos, it really helps me as a creator, and it helps this video get out to more people. Thanks.